welcome to the Post-Human Podcast.
Welcome to the Post-Human Podcast again, folks. Tonight's guest, Brandon Ford, host of Blind Rage and author of 15 books, people. So how are you, Brandon?
I'm doing great, thanks. How about you?
I'm very good. You'll have to, again, this is over WhatsApp, listeners. We're not on a Zoom call today. Just want to point that out. So let's just talk a little bit about your podcast to begin with. What made you start podcasting?
Well, to talk about movies, pretty much, I never really expected to have anybody on with me. I did do a solo podcast in 2014 that was just for YouTube called B Movie Bonanza, which was essentially the same thing. Only I didn't have any background audio. It was just me talking over the movie. But I always like talking about movies. I like cheesy horror movies. I like B movies, and I like movie commentary. So it seemed like a good idea.
I want
And
to. Sorry, Karen.
I was just going to say that I got some friends to join me, and I think it made it more entertaining.
I just want to say thank you for the Frank Henenlotter. I always fuck his last name up. Commentaries. Again, I got sent by my guest a bunch of commentaries from the director Frank Henenlotter. I can't even remember if that's the way you pronounce it. Tis
You're
that.
doing it perfectly.
I know. I know. It's because it's like super early. I'm questioning everything. No, but again, I'm a huge fan of like Basket Case and Frankenhooker and Brain Dead. So it's interesting to start listening to those and to get his take on them, which is amazing. So you did a solo podcast. Now I've done a couple of solo ones, and I think they were terrible. How did you find yours?
Well, the Blind Rage podcast is primarily solo.
Okay.
Because my guests aren't always available because of the time differences and work and personal life obligations. So most of the episodes are just me talking over a movie and offering my thoughts and telling stories and anecdotes about how I discovered them and because I was never really a popular kid growing up.
No, me neither.
So
It's
yeah,
funny how
movies
there's two types of podcasters. There's the types that were extremely popular, and then there's the ones that were just me and you.
well, you said you're an introvert too, right?
I am, yeah.
Yeah, same here. So
Huge.
I didn't have a lot of friends, and most of the time these movies were my friends. So
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, again, when I grew up bullied a bit. I've spoke about it on my previous shows a little bit. So I used to divulge myself into sort of fantasy realms, and I was a fan of Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings when I was growing up, and a huge fan of sci-fi movies and again B movies and horrors. Um, but it is a very good way. It's the only reason that I read a lot as well, because you can just take yourself off into a different world. And and for someone who's got a very vivid, wild imagination, it's difficult to keep that even when reading under wraps. You know what I'm saying?
absolutely.
It's pretty tricky. One of the podcasts the podcast that I did listen to is based upon one of my favorite films. I only get to talk about it a little bit, but it's A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Oh, that was one of the first ones that I did.
Yeah, that was that was what I reached out to you over, because I seen the post and I was like, oh, someone's done a podcast about, well, an episode about my favorite show, and obviously I listened to it and it was fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
Um, this again, we spoke briefly over messages about the series. Um,
Hmm.
what's your thoughts on the series for our listeners out there? Because I've spoke to several people um, who weren't big fans of it because obviously Freddie was more of a host.
Oh,
Uh,
we're talking about Freddy's Nightmare.
yeah.
Um,
Obviously, he was more of a host and he didn't really do many full episodes, so to speak. But the only reason that I liked it was just because of the very first couple of episodes where he was in, where it gave you more of a huge backstory to him.
well, yeah. Well, that's the general consensus of the show is the first few were pretty decent, and then it just went on a downward spiral
Mm.
and continued until the end of the series run. But I watched it when it first aired when I was a kid
Yeah,
because
me
I
too.
grew up a hardcore Freddy fan. And I guess I was a little too, let's just say, naive to see how bad it really was. And yeah, looking back on them now and trying to make sense of these really
Oh.
weird, out there, bizarro storylines, it can be tricky.
They're so. The thing is, they were so cheesy, but they were so random. There was just obviously. I'm pretty sure that each it was like a different director each time. Do you know, like a bit the way that series do it now? But I think that every show had a different sort of director, and
It
that's why
did,
it
yeah.
got a bit wild because everyone sort of put their own spin and take on it. To the point where they had to remove a lot of stuff because people were just going wild. They had this crazy little budget, and it was a bit carte blanche.
Well, I mean, the first episode you had Toby Hooper, so you had some good guys behind the scenes, and Tom McLaughlin did Friday the 13th Part 6,
Mm.
and oh shit, Ken Wiederhorn.
Yep.
He did 7 of the episodes, and he directed one of my all-time favorite slasher movies, As of a Stranger, and he also directed Shockwaves.
Ooh.
So yeah, they had a lot of talent, and they had the author David J. Scow write an episode. He wrote the, I believe, the safe sex episode. So
The safe
there
sex
was a
episode.
lot of uh, different talent from a variety of different fields lending a hand, and for some reason, it didn't turn out too well.
It just didn't work. I think it was
It didn't
because
work.
again they
No.
just got to. It was like one of the biggest horror slashers, you know, and they
Yeah.
they kind of literally just got carte blanche. It was like, nope, here's what you can do. Here's the script. This is it. You know,
Yeah.
to the point where when it goes through the editing process, they're like, you can't have half of this in there. You know, it's
Right.
they just went. I wished I could see a lot of the originals because I would imagine that they would be fantastic. You know,
I
if it
don't know if they exist.
no, I think they got destroyed.
Because I believe they were shot on video, and I don't think that there are any masters of the original episodes. I know you guys in the UK got a DVD way back when, I think with 4 episodes on it,
Yeah,
and
we did. Yeah.
it's sold so poorly that they didn't put any more out.
Well, I know
But
that you
we didn't get
can.
anything.
I know that you can buy them now. I used to have.
Bootleg.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I used to have. As fucked up as it is, I used to have them back when Pirate Bay was a thing. I used to have them all, so I just literally downloaded this fuck off big collection and then rewatched them all because I didn't get to watch them as a kid because obviously it
Hmm.
was on. It used to be on. You used to have Cartoon Network, and then after that you had like TCM, the film channel, because there wasn't no such thing as the fucking TCM film channel. So they would put it on after like Cartoon Network.
Oh, that's
Um,
unusual.
it was very strange. I don't know who come up with that programming schedule. But obviously, if you was a kid and you was like, "Oh, Cartoon Network," and it was like the middle of the night, you'd flick on and either get wrestling, or you would get. Sorry, you wouldn't get wrestling. That was when we had cable. Or you'd just get some shitty old horror, or maybe the X Files, or you'd get like Freddy's Nightmares. And being a kid, switching over to that, I was like, "Whoa, this is crazy." But it was just so cheesy. It almost had like a Saved by the Bell esque kind of.
It did. It definitely did. That's an astute observation right there. Because of the quality of the show and the
Mm.
cheesiness of the dialogue, and um yeah, but it it was really hard to find for the longest time until Chiller started airing them,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and that's now gone. But that was an American uh, horror channel that played all old horror themed TV shows and movies, but they were edited for TV.
Yep.
And once they started airing Freddy's Nightmares, that was pretty much a gold mine for anybody who hadn't seen the show.
Oh
And
yeah.
so, people started ripping them and, like you said, putting them on Pirate Bay and on YouTube and such. But I had a friend who was pretty fanatical about the show and about A Nightmare on Elm Street in general. About this was right when Chiller started, like 2005 or six,
Yeah.
and he had he sold a couple of bootleg collections that he got the sources from people around the world.
Okay.
He would buy and sell and trade and do everything he could to get the uh, best quality for each episode. And he put together some sets and he sold them. And yeah, I bought one or two. There's a Blu-ray set, a bootleg
A
Blu-ray set that's
Blu-ray
going around now.
bootleg. I didn't even know you can
Yeah.
bootleg Blu-rays. Well, obviously you can because you can get them now on Pirate Bay, but you'd never see.
Well, I don't know exactly how it's done, but there are people on YouTube who do some kind of
Yeah, yeah.
upscale thing with
I mean,
stuff that
I've
wasn't
got
HD.
I've got like a rough idea because I used to, again, way back when, as fucked up as it is, I used to get so much free shit. This was way back when it was so easy and simple, and half of the world was doing it. Back when everyone was downloading songs off LimeWire, you know.
Sure.
But I couldn't imagine. Like we used to have a guy that used to come around our neighborhood who used to sell DVDs, and
Oh,
I could never imagine a guy coming round and is like, "Yeah, man, I got the latest Blu-rays." it'd be it'd be like crazy for like the neighborhood where we grew up. It would have been like crazy. It would have been the next big thing if someone would have been able to find out a way to do that in our
what did
neighborhood.
you have? He went like door to door with a bag of stuff?
Yeah, literally, he just did. There was several people. There
Wow.
was like people that would do again back in the day when you could. Do you remember like PlayStations where you could get them chipped? It's like a phrase where it's like jailbreaking.
Right.
Like back in the day when PlayStation 1 and 2's come out, you could get them chipped, essentially jailbreak, you know?
Sure.
And you'd have a guy who would come round, I'd have a friend whose parent would do it. So he'd like come round to the school with like bags of DVDs and bags of fucking bootleg PlayStation games and just sell them to other parents.
Wow.
But the same guy, it would occasionally, you'd come round your house because obviously he'd know your fucking parents or whatever, or you'd be round your friend's house, and then he'd come round and he'd be like, "Yeah, I've got fucking the latest," you know.
With full artwork and everything?
The discs were never had artwork, but the cases they come in cases, and the cases obviously had printed artwork that was like
Uh-huh.
super pixelated and shit
Okay.
quality. Obviously, because it was done on some old bollocks printer,
Right.
that could barely do black and white.
Wow.
You never had any people like that in America?
No. Um, what we had were uh, tables that in the 90s, uh, there used to be certain areas of the city where people would sell bootleg VHS,
Oh yeah, yeah,
and they were uh, they were theatrical releases that were recorded in the theater with a camcorder.
yeah, yeah. We had them.
Um, and they also had um, um, like uh, color copied versions of like legit movies that were released that were actually on video at the time. So what they would do was like uh, color copy the VHS sleeve on that heavy stock paper and do a dupe of the tape and just uh, wrap them in cellophane and put them on a table and ten
Wow.
bucks a pop. But sometimes the color didn't always turn out so right. I One memory that I have burned in my mind is when Mrs. Doubtfire first came out. This is
Oh
how
wow.
fucking old I am.
Top
But
film.
the faces were all orange because it didn't have a really good cover printer.
Like
So,
peach. High
oh, it was
peach skin.
worse. It was worse
Oh
than
wow.
that. Yeah.
Oh, that's one of my all-time favorite films.
Really?
Mrs. Doubtfire. Yeah, I love it. It's, I I'm strange when it comes to films because when people watch films, I take a whole lot of stuff away that people don't take. Like my take on the Terminator, for example. Terminator, sci-fi film, fucking about a man who comes back to, save the future race from a bunch of robots. Yeah, essentially,
Hmm.
is how people would explain it in a nutshell. Whereas I think that it's actually about a guy who's in love with a woman who goes back just to save her. All the robots, that's not really, that's almost just a backstory in that film, you know? Most of
Hmm.
the first Terminator is about fucking Reese, fucking whatever his name is, just going back and being in love with her, trying to save her and protect, essentially his son, future son.
Sure.
So to me, it's the greatest love story ever told, and it's not even a sci-fi film.
Hmm.
It's I watched it super depressed.
Oh.
A super depressed after coming out of a relationship, and I was like, "What could distract my brain?
Well,
The
okay.
the, the Terminator."
Now things are making a lot more sense. Okay.
Yeah, you can watch any film and take anything away from it. But after watching that, I watched it so many times. Huge fan of the Terminator series. But after watching it in that state of mind, I was like, I think we've been getting all this wrong from the beginning. This is one of the greatest love stories ever.
Okay.
I hold fire to it to the day. You know, it's
All right.
I I
I'm
I
not gonna fight you.
I'd challenge I'd challenge anyone to watch it and just have that in mind. Just forget about the robots and just think about that singular plot line, and you'll go, no, actually that makes sense.
Right.
You don't really catch it because you're so focused on the fact that these fucking Terminators coming after this woman, Sarah Connor. That's all you're focused on is when's he coming back
Right.
up again? What's going on? Whereas he's actually grinding his balls off and he fucking dies for her as well. Son
Right.
of a bitch dies for her.
Well, that's love right there.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And
Sci-fi, nah. Trust me, there's quite a few films where you can just happily watch and take so much away from it. Where it's quite weird. I think the Terminator one day might be a real thing, but just they're just not
probably.
they're just not going to look like humanoid fucking robots. I don't think they'll look like a skeleton, is what I'm saying. I think they'll just look like a normal robot.
They'll probably just look like people.
But like Blade Runner style.
Maybe. Or like real dolls.
Do you know? Have you seen all the crazy? Well, obviously, there's a lot of sex dolls that are bringing out at the minute that are hyper realistic. I think they're going to be the ones that are going to take over the world.
No. But I do remember being on the Real Doll website in the like early to mid aughts when they were first big, and they made a couple of movies that were inspired by them. They made one called Lars and the Real Girl,
That
which I
sounds like a
didn't,
porno.
doesn't it? Yeah. But there's another one that I really like and I prefer, and I'm pretty sure it actually came out before that one, called Love Object, and it's about an introvert who's a pretty lonely guy. He
Yeah.
has a crush on a girl at work, and he doesn't really know how to talk to her, and so he gets this real doll.
Ooh, sounds
Well, they don't
creepy.
use the term real doll, but yeah, he begins an obsession with her, and then he starts to make her dress like the girl he works with, and
Okay.
he's insisting that the doll is talking to him.
Wow. What's the name of that again?
Love Object.
Love Object. That sounds super creepy. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's a really underrated movie. I think I like it a lot.
I bet. I bet it gets lost between the airwaves just because it's again, people must think it's almost like a soft core porn in a way. If I was to say to someone, "Hey, I've got a film right here for you. It's called Love Object. It's about a guy who's super into a woman, can't get her, so he gets this sex doll." People would be like, "You watching porn?"
Mm,
Like it almost sounds like the thing is with films like that, anything that involves like a an animate sex doll, it almost sounds like it's swaying towards you know, the dark web.
yeah,
Did you hear about that guy who married his sex doll?
I think I did.
He was a super jacked like bodybuilder guy from like the Ukraine or Russia or somewhere like that. And he just married his sex doll. And some people broke it apparently. He was walking along in the fucking
Oh
streets
no.
with it, and they fucking smashed it up or some shit like that. Because again,
Well,
it bit creepy.
I saw a documentary that was from the BBC called "Love Me, Love My Doll,"
Oh, I haven't
and
seen that.
it's about people who have these obsessive relationships with their real dolls and treat them as real people. It's a
Whoa.
little oddball, but yeah,
The
it's a
only
thing.
Yeah, I know it is. The only documentary I watched that sort of is about the UK and sex was about the people that, like, like the furries, like people that like dress up as dogs and
Yeah.
shit like that, and that's weird. Like, why would you do that? Like, get a full leathery dog costume and just walk around all day pretending to be a dog. Like, there's no.
Well,
It's so
I'd say
strange.
if you're not hurting anybody, then
Oh
you're
yeah.
good.
I mean,
You
that's.
know.
I don't know. I mean, again, if you're into whatever you're into. I mean, just for me, I mean, if I was on a lot of drugs, it'd be fun, you know, for a day, just to
Maybe.
see what it'd be like. But I don't know, man. I couldn't imagine doing it day in, day out, and living a lifestyle like that. That'd be so wild. Like,
Well, they have the conventions where they get to meet their fellow furries, and
yeah.
yeah,
I think I might have to get into it and infiltrate it to get some further information.
yeah, go undercover.
There'll be a podcast of me in a leather dog outfit within the next 2 months.
Sounds good.
I'll be at Comic Con in my fucking dog costume. See, that's a cool one. You know, have you ever done like cosplay?
No.
No, me neither. Not properly. I'd like to. I think it'd be kind of cool.
Nah, I'd feel too awkward.
Hmm. Why?
I don't know. It's the same thing with role play. You know,
Okay, yeah,
I
no, that's
wouldn't be able.
strange.
I would feel too self-conscious.
Yeah, that's a strange one, man, roleplay. Because it seems weird pretending to do something while you're doing something that's real.
Right.
in a sexual bedroom like scenario. It's so fucking bizarre. You know, like people, like you see it on film, you see it on like series and films where, and it seems to be like on a lot, where there's like a woman who's always trying to entice a guy to do some role playing, and he's never interested. Never.
Mm.
It's like, hey, honey, I've bought this fucking, Mrs. Claus outfit or whatever, and, it's like, what? Like, man, how do you know he's into that? You think
Ah.
I think you need to have some talks in your relationship.
I would say so. Yeah. But some people think that their relationship needs some spicing up. So if
Yeah.
it works, it works.
Do you know, I've got a theory behind that. I think the people that are spending all that time thinking that their relationship needs spicing up probably should be thinking less about spicing it up and just putting in a little bit of effort. You know? Because
That's a good point.
I've been in scenarios like that where people have gone, "Hey, you're not making any effort," and I'm like, "Yeah, but neither are you. It's a two-way thing." You know,
Hmm.
it's so strange. Like people's
Hmm.
mentalities when they just get into like a mindset, and then they're like, "Oh no, it's all on you." You're like, "Is it? I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm a bit dubious." You
Hmm.
know. So let's get back to the film talk. I don't really
Sure.
talk about this much either. B movies, huge, huge fan. What's your
Yeah.
favourite?
Oh God.
I have a list of favourites.
No, now you're putting me on the spot. Well, I mean, obviously my passion is horror, all things horror, but primarily slasher. Uh, I like a lot of shot on video stuff, like video violence and uh, shit. Really bad ones like Sledgehammer and
Ooh,
um, Slumber Party Massacre
yeah,
movies, Sleepaway Camp movies, and I also, as for B movies, I during the '90s, I watched a lot of erotic thrillers because that
okay.
seemed to be the time for erotic thrillers, like the body chemistry movies
Hmm.
and Night Eyes and uh, names escaping
Hmm.
me.
Wouldn't are
A
those
Terror Within, all
barbed
those movies like
wire? Would that be
Andrew
classed as one?
Stevens was in a lot of them, and Shannon Tweed,
Hmm.
and yeah, a lot of them were produced by Roger Corman's company, and Cinemax was always playing them. Anything with a little boobage, Cinemax was always playing it, and I was able to find an actual cohesive story in a lot of them, and
Hmm.
uh, a lot of the actors I would seek out and see what other stuff they had done. So that got me into Jim Wynorski's movies and Fred Olen Ray's movies and Dan Golden's movies. A lot of these directors who you wouldn't know of if you're not um, in the know,
Yep.
so to speak. If you focus more on the mainstream stuff, you wouldn't know who they are. But as far as a list of favorites, my God, I I don't even know because it changes all the time. I'm
Yeah, no,
constantly adding new stuff to it,
yeah, that's the problem with films. Is there's so many you can still watch a lot of old films and it can still always make the list.
right?
One of my favorites, and I'm talking about real B movies, like the old timers, is Doctor Phibes Rises Again, like the abominable Doctor Phibes Rises Again.
Oh,
So I like the old horror. I like, well, kind of horrors, but like the real low budget cult classic, you know,
yeah, absolutely.
stuff like them as well. That's a
With the bugs,
yeah, yeah, stuff like that. The old fucking
like the Blob and the science fiction.
yeah, like a lot of the old science fiction stuff I like as well.
Yeah,
Like
Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
yeah, yeah, Day the Earth Stood Still.
Hmm.
I love a lot of old films like that. One of my favorites. It's crazy, and I recently watched it. I watch it pretty much every year. Is the original Journey to the Center of the Earth.
Mm.
Such a, it's like not amazing, but it's such a cool film. It's like an old film. Always watch it as a child, and then like you
Hmm.
watch it. Do you know like the films? There's like films that you watch as a kid that are like old that always seem to stick with you,
Yeah.
and like that's one of them. And then Lawrence of Arabia, which again is a long but fucking fantastic movie.
Hmm.
You ever seen that?
I have not. No.
Ooh, you should. There's a lot of up. There's. I mean, I'm a huge horror fan, but there's tons of films that I missed out on just because I stuck to the one genre, which was kind of foolish in a way. Um,
Well, it never hurts to broaden your horizons.
what do you think about really old horrors? You know, like stuff like The Raven and The Birds and
I do like some Hitchcock stuff. Some of the early Herschel Gordon Lewis movies from the '60s. Uh, uh, I haven't really some William Castle stuff is pretty fun. Some of the old Joan Crawford ones,
yeah.
A Straight Jacket and stuff like that. Um, I haven't gone back further though, unfortunately.
Mm. You should, man. There's tons of old stuff where they just. It's crazy to see the special effects. You know,
Hmm.
it's like when you watch, you know, Bela Lugosi's, Dracula.
Right.
It's fantastic. You'd like, and that weren't even really like hefty amounts of makeup. It was just his demeanor, and it was there's so many like old fucking classics that just have such great acting. There was just completely different actors. Like they'd immerse themselves into that role like it was them for the rest of their fucking life. You know what I mean? It was so
Yeah.
crazy. Like they played the character better than anybody. You know, it's like Marlon Brando. You know, with The Godfather. You know, no one else is going to be able to do that better than him ever. It's impossible.
Hmm. Yeah, and it became a hindrance though for some of those actors like Vincent Price and Anthony Perkins
Oh yeah,
because
yeah,
that's what they became known for, and that's it. And when Christopher Lee wanted to try to
yeah.
do other
Christopher
things,
Lee was the same.
he had a difficult time because
Christopher Lee's amazing.
but when you're known as a horror actor and you want to do other things, it's hard for the public to see you in
Mm.
different kinds of roles.
Christopher Lee owns the world's largest occult collection of books, I believe. Some shit like that. He owns like over 400 occult books, which is so strange.
Well, I would think that uh, his heirs probably own them now because he's long gone.
Yeah. Oh shit. Yeah. I'd completely forgot about that. Huh. It's amazing what slips through the net. I'd completely forgot about that. Shit. Hmm. Yeah, that was a couple of years ago, wasn't it?
I think it's been a while. Yeah, all those guys are gone. Vincent Price and
Oh yeah. Well, he died during the filming of Edward Scissorhands, didn't he?
I think he died during
So
or
yeah,
immediately after.
I know it was around that time, which is kind of sad. It's such a great film.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was a good swan song, you know.
Again, Johnny Depp, amazing actor. His first film, Nightmare on Elm Street.
Right. Yeah.
Segueing straight back then. Look.
Yeah, and he didn't even want to be an actor. He wanted to be a musician.
Musician, yeah. which is kind of crazy. He's got a band now. He does stuff with Alice Cooper,
Oh,
and a few other people. I think they're called the Hollywood Vampires or something like that,
uh-huh.
which is kind of cool. He, if anyone was to probably, you'd assume is a vampire or some immortal person, it would be like Johnny Depp.
Probably, yeah.
Even though he blatantly ages, he's just got that mysterious aura to him, you know.
Yeah.
He's mysterious in himself, you know. Especially when you see him do interviews, and he just seems so out there.
Yeah. Well, I don't think he likes to his personal life to be very public. So he plays the mystique pretty well, I
Mm.
think.
So fucked up that he's never got like an Oscar, you know.
He hasn't?
I don't think so. Nope. He's like he was a bit like Leonardo DiCaprio. He's never really got one. Obviously, Leonardo got one for The Revenant, but
Oh yeah,
I,
that's I thought. Yeah.
I don't think Johnny Depp's got one yet. Even though he's probably the most diverse, or one of the most diverse actors out there, apart from maybe Gary Oldman. He's definitely up there on the list of diverse actors.
Hmm.
Such a shame about the way the horror industry's gone now, though, because you don't
Yeah.
see many good films. It's all about the jump factor rather than like psychologically, you know, twists and turns. And I don't know.
Well, there are diamonds in the rough, but you have to look for them. You know, I mean, you have to wade through all the nonsense like the Paranormal Activity and the Conjuring movies and all the remakes
Shit.
to find something like Midsummer, you know. There is good stuff out there. It's just because the market is so oversaturated, it sometimes gets lost.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of all the Conjuring and all
No.
these stupid little doll films and like possession films, and it's all it ever is. It's just a ghost film
Right.
with
Yeah. Haunted
really.
houses are big now. The supernatural.
Mm,
Um, because in the decade before it was like all about bringing back the slasher movie of the '80s, and now it's all about bringing back the ghost stories of the '70s. And the only ones that I really liked were the Sinister movies, and a lot of that had to do with the acting. I thought the acting was really good in those, and the stories for both of them were pretty unsettling.
mm.
So
Yeah, I don't think I've watched those.
I did see the first Annabelle. I found it to be underwhelming. I really wasn't all that into it. I
Yeah, I can
tried
imagine.
to I tried to watch the first Paranormal Activity, and to me, it just felt like sitting through somebody's boring home movies.
Boring home movies.
That's
It makes you
exactly
feel
what it
like
felt like.
you could shoot it yourself and probably do a better job
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
easily.
And I think they were going for authenticity with that one, and they definitely were authentic in that it felt boring and drawn out. There was a lot
their,
of
their
scenes where nothing was happening.
their authenticity was there was too authentic
A
that there
little
was
too authentic.
that the ghosts didn't exist either.
There you go.
Yeah, it was pretty terrible. They when they tried to recreate all the slashers, that was very like hit and miss again. The only person that did a relatively good job is Rob Zombie. He's about the only guy who makes a fucking damn good horror film.
Um, uh, I'm gonna have to plead the fifth on that one.
Really?
Yeah, no, not a fan
How come?
because they're bad.
In what way?
Uh, you really want me to go into this?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh God, because I go into it so much on my own podcast.
No, that's cool.
Um, no, I don't think he has an original vision for any of his movies or any of his characters. His characters are all pretty much one note,
Yeah, I can
and
agree with that.
his dialogue really is it's juvenile with all the um, it's every other word is a swear word, and I was not at all happy with the origin story of Michael Myers for the Halloween.
Okay.
And you know, I I didn't really like House of a Thousand Corpses when it first came out,
Yeah.
but I wanted to do a commentary for it for the podcast, and while it wasn't as bad as I remembered it being, it was still pretty bad. And it was way too much. It was like he took the best parts of the first two Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies and just gobbled them together.
Yeah, kind of, yeah. Yeah, because the second one's with the cop, and obviously,
Yeah, Dennis
yeah,
Hopper.
yeah, it goes more into the family side rather than, well, not that the first one doesn't, but obviously, it sort of gives you the copper and
Well, the second
uh,
had the underground like amusement park where
oh
the
yeah,
family
yeah,
had a
yeah,
lair,
yeah,
and
yeah,
he kind of did the same thing with House Without Corpses. I mean, like he had the house where the family lived. He had a character who was very much inspired by Leatherface,
yep.
and he insists on putting his wife in all of his movies, and she really can't act.
No, but she's super hot. Well, for me, maybe not for you. That might be where we differ.
Uh, she's an attractive girl. I'll give you that. Sure,
Maybe that's where our Rob Zombie conflict is that our
maybe.
sexual orientation's different. So I'm watching it for my reason, and then you've got your real reason in which you can critique it, whereas I'm essentially watching it through my eyes, which is I'm like, she's super hot. Let's watch this again.
Yeah,
Maybe that's my
yeah.
take.
Us both does see things a little differently.
But no, you've got some good points, man. There's very few people that don't like Rob Zombie films, but have they don't critique it the way which you have. You are super correct. You know, the origin story for Mike Myers was a bit rubbish, and the dialogue is it's not great. You know, it's not Tarantino dialogue. You
Oh
know,
God, you could say that again.
it's again, if anyone can write fucking dialogue, it's him. He captures the human spirit and essence to a T. You know, in terms of how we work socially, and whereas the the Rob Zombie, it was just kind of a bit over explained as well. You know, they
Hmm.
almost put some bollocks into it that wasn't necessary. Whereas House of a Thousand Corpses kind of is almost again loosely based upon the first two Texas Chainsaw Massacres. Maybe with just a couple of other elements added in, like Captain Spaulding and
Hmm.
So yeah, I can kind of see that. What about the Devil's Rejects? What do you think of that one?
I don't remember much about it other than really, really hating it.
Okay. Do you ever see the Lords of Salem? That was a good one.
No, no, but I do hear that people who don't like his movies do like that one, so maybe I should check it out.
Yeah, that's what I wanted your take. That's why I was asking for your take on that one because that's completely different. It's such a it is a shame because I maybe it's again I'm a huge fan of his music as well. Is that
I have nothing against him as a musician.
okay?
Um, it wouldn't be fair for me to judge him as a musician because he doesn't do the kind of music that I listen to.
Hmm.
But horror is has been my thing for so long, so kind of stepping into my territory there.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so I think I can be a little more judgmental there, but for his music, you know, I have no problems with him there.
Okay. So while we're on this topic of slashers, we spoke a little bit about Leatherface, and we obviously mentioned Nightmare on Elm Street, and obviously
Mm.
Friday the 13th spoke a teensy bit about it. Now they're the main three slashers, in my eyes. Obviously Freddy, Jason, and Leatherface. If you was
Well,
to
you got Michael
look up,
Myers.
yeah, Michael Myers as well. Yeah, yeah. But if you was to look up slashers, you'd probably get those three first. What's your thoughts about the Friday the 13th reboot and their franchise?
Uh, I I I love the Friday the 13th, the original ones. I didn't like the reboot. Um, I and it uh Derek Mears, I didn't like his portrayal of Jason.
Okay.
Um, he seems like a really nice guy. That's why I kind of feel bad saying it. But I I think the movie as a whole didn't turn out so well. But I am a big fan of the original
Mm,
films,
me too.
and I just got the the new Scream Factory set, the second one, even though I already have the first one that Paramount put out, the tin. And yeah, these were movies that I obviously grew up on as well, in addition to all the other slashers. And it's not a very popular opinion, but I really, really like part five. Everybody
Okay.
seems to hate it because it's not Jason, but I think that there's a
That's
decent storyline there.
that's a new blood, isn't it?
A new beginning.
A new beginning. Sorry, not a new blood. A new beginning. Which one is a
Yeah,
new blood? Something starts. Some horror.
seven.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's part seven with Lara Park Lincoln when
Yeah. And then you
uh,
got Jason goes to Manhattan.
that's eight.
The eighth
That's
following
another
that.
one people don't really care for because Jason doesn't take Manhattan until like the last 15, 20 minutes. But
No. It's the worst one is obviously Jason X. That's
I wholeheartedly agree. Yes,
it's
I hate it.
tragic.
Hate it.
The fact that they had a didn't they also have a laser grid kind of thing in there, like in Resident Evil, or am I crossing wires?
I think they
They
might
did
have.
they did some
Um,
weird space shit.
they did. Yeah.
Threw him out the airlock.
Yeah.
Fucking and he come back and it's so stupid though how the fucking nanobots rebuilt him and he has a metal mask and he's
Yeah.
got a
He
fucking
became
robot arm.
Uber Jason.
Yeah, why didn't they could have just kept on with that? Why didn't they? It's amazing that it did so bad, so terrible that there was like, no, we can't even continue this. We can't even give him his new fuck. We can't even give him his old mask. How are we going to explain that?
Mm.
I think that's why they had to do Freddy v Jason. You
Well,
know.
it's actually the other way around.
Now Freddy versus Jason was in the works for years. I know that.
Yeah, but New Line had the rights to the Jason character, and I think they were about to expire if they didn't make another movie because they hadn't done one since Jason Goes to Hell.
Yep.
And so they really wanted to make Freddy versus Jason happen. So they just made Jason X pretty quickly, just so they could keep hold of the rights for
Oh,
when
okay.
they finally had Freddy versus Jason ready, and that's why they set it in the future so that it wouldn't interfere with Freddy versus Jason.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. It's so weird, like with companies and film companies and the rights to stuff. It's like the Marvel films, how
Well,
there's so many Spider-Mans and the rights were fucking fucked because half of the characters were still owned by Sony and obviously during the merger, and it was so fucked up, man. How rights work in terms of the characters and it's so fucking crazy.
well, you got me thinking now, because I don't know if the lawsuit was ever settled, because I think it was supposed to be settled this sometime this year with Sean Cunningham, and the screenwriter of the first movie. They were at battle over the rights to Friday the 13th, and that's one of the main reasons why there hasn't been another Friday the 13th movie since the remake in '09.
Okay.
And I know that um, uh, New Line has been wanting to put another one out, but everything's all tied up and screwed up at the moment. So until that gets situated, we're not going to see Jason. Um, but yeah, like I said, I thought it was supposed to be settled this year. They were going to court this year, so I'm not sure exactly what happened there.
COVID probably got in the way as an
Maybe,
excuse.
yeah,
You know, it's like, we'll hold on to these rights for a little bit longer. We can't come to court. We can't go in there. You know. Meanwhile, they're still making royalties, probably. You know.
yeah.
For, I mean, there's got to be. That's the main one. Is like royalties off merch. You know, think of all the toy. I mean, I used to have loads of like, do you know the McFarlane
Sure.
toys? They were
Yeah.
super cool, and I was a huge fan as a kid because I used to collect wrestlers and action figures. But then you'd have these McFarlane toys, and they were super realistic and grotesque, and there was nothing that you could really get as a kid, you know.
Hmm.
But they were cool as fuck. But the amount of like ones that I'd bought and then lost, and I'm just one fan, but the royalties and merch to that just alone, just for action figures, you'd
Hmm.
still be making it because there's tons. Especially for like Friday the 13th and A Nightmare on Elm Street. There's so much merch out there.
Yeah. Well, that's another one that New Line has been wanting to do another version of another remake of A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, I know. What did you think of the one with Jackie Earl Haley?
Oh, it was terrible.
Yeah, I know.
Terrible.
I
He
like the
was.
fact that they portrayed. I like the fact that they made him, and they didn't really include the full. Obviously, in the first Nightmare on Elm Street, they wanted to show the fact that he was, like a paedophile properly,
No, they didn't.
but no,
Well,
they
they
could.
did.
They
They dumbed
couldn't
it
because
down.
yeah,
They
because
dumbed it
they
down.
couldn't because of the there was a lot of news at the time. Apparently,
Yeah.
there was like a serial person going around.
Yeah.
So obviously
There was
they had to
can't do it.
fucking not do that. So obviously during then the remake they put a little bit more of that in, but they kind of didn't really hit up on the whole dreams bits. It wasn't the dream features, as you could call them, or dream scenes. They weren't great.
No, because
They
it was all
weren't.
CGI.
Yeah, I mean my favourite is the third. With a puppet. That's one of the best dream sequences ever. Whereas there, the puppet fucking whips his strings off and then just is on the floor and he grows into Big Freddy and fucking cuts open his legs and his arms and
Yeah.
then uses them as a goddamn puppet. Walks him through the fucking hallway and jumps his ass off the roof.
Well, in the original
Hella scary.
script that Wes Craven wrote, the Philip character was supposed to be a little boy. He was supposed to be about 10.
Yeah, yeah, man. It's
So
crazy.
they still weren't ready to go that dark yet with
They
that
should.
series.
But the problem is, to me, there's only one Freddy Krueger, and it's Robert Englund.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
nobody that can play the role. Nobody.
I feel the same.
But
Yeah.
he doesn't want to do it anymore. So You know.
Well, he said he'd be willing to do it one last time to pass someone.
Yeah. Although, I don't know if you've seen it. He did a cameo in The Goldbergs.
I did. I did see it. Yeah.
That was fucking hilarious. That was brilliant.
Yeah,
I'm
I
a
think
huge
that
fan of The
was,
Goldbergs. It's one of the only series I watch. And I was like,
the
oh
first
shit.
time.
Yeah,
I think it
first
was
time
the first
in,
time in a while
yeah,
that he actually
first,
put on the full makeup.
probably the first time since like the fucking Freddy versus Jason.
Yeah, probably.
That's probably the last time he did the role.
Yeah.
And even then he wasn't happy because it was all CGI and,
Yeah. And
they
the
did all that
script
weird
wasn't good.
face shit and so fucked up. The only one that we haven't really mentioned, it's not really, I wouldn't class it as a slasher, but Hellraiser. Another one of my all-time favorites, but I wouldn't class it as a slasher film.
No, that's a more gothic supernatural.
People put it as like again, Pinhead, whatever people want to call him. You should have a better name than that. It's fucking crap. Like a really rubbish name for anybody.
I don't know. Does Clive Barker call him in the books?
I
or
don't
in the
think
stories?
I don't think he does. I have read A Hellbound Heart, but I don't.
Is that the
Huh.
only story he appears in?
No, I think there's a couple. I haven't read A Hellbound Heart in a while. Shit. I can't remember how he refers to them as. I think he just refers to them as like angels, demons, and demons.
Mm.
Like, I don't really think he puts any sort of name to him. I could be extremely wrong. I could be way off. I might need to reread it. But what's your thoughts on that series?
I, like I said, I was always a big slasher guy, and I only branched out into supernatural territory very rarely, and plus that one was a bit much. Uh, I didn't see the second one. The only one that I do remember specifically seeing from beginning to end a few times was the third one.
Yeah, that's the most popular.
Um,
It doesn't do it any justice, really.
uh, I don't know. It's been so long. But I remember it being pretty gnarly with all the chains and the only thing that really stands out was the scene with there was like a big some sort of statue with the chains that
Yeah,
came
yeah,
out
yeah.
and it pulled the woman's skin off.
Yeah, that was cool. That was a gnarly scene, that was.
Well,
The
that's
whole,
probably why.
I think the whole budget went into that scene. That was about the best scene. I mean, all the Hellraisers are pretty grotesque, but that scene is fantastic, man. That's went so bad. That was like the craziest sex scene ever. Because you think, oh man, they're banging, and then next thing, her skin's getting ripped off, and then she's getting
Yeah,
dragged into a fucking small monolith.
right.
Essentially, it's crazy, man. I'm a huge fan. It's just that they keep rebooting them. I mean, this is the real problem with slashers: is there's not been a new slasher. There hasn't been no one that can take this huge torch and run with it for the next 20 years. In a way,
No, not
it's
not
very
really.
difficult to think of anything that's
Well,
along those lines.
I think the closest thing that we have, um, as far as horror icons that could be comparable and to the Titans
Hmm.
is Jigsaw, but
Okay. Yeah, that's a different. See, that's
it
another
is.
one. Again, if it was, it kind of was Jigsaw doing all the killings, but not all the time. So you
Right.
can't say that he's the fucking slasher. You can't say that. That's another strange one. Hmm.
Yeah.
It is definitely It's like Chucky. Another Titan, But is
Sure.
he? Is he? It is a slasher film.
I
But
think it's more of a killer doll element
yeah,
to it.
it's. There's a couple that just it's a grey area. You know,
Yeah.
they're up there and on that list of titans, but they're not quite in the category of a slasher.
Hmm.
You know, Slumber House Massacre. That's almost a slasher because it's a singular man. You know,
Oh, that's very much a slasher.
yeah, yeah. The Burning. That's a slasher. You know.
You got it under Slumber Party Murders on VHS when it first came out.
Yeah, I looked into it the other day. I don't think any of them were banned. I don't think so.
I I think part two.
Okay.
I
I
think
mean,
part two.
I couldn't really find anything, but I might have typed in again. I typed in the American term, so maybe if I typed in the English,
Maybe.
it might come up and go, this film was banned."
There is a movie that was banned in since it first came out. So you probably wouldn't know of it. But it's an American movie called Mikey. Are you familiar with that one?
No.
It's a killer kid movie, and it's a pretty brutal one. It came out in '92, and it had Brian Bonsall and Josie Bissett, and
Hmm.
the it wouldn't the BBFC is from what I recall, they didn't want to
I think it rings a
classify it
bell.
because there was a really horrible abduction of a little boy that had happened around the same time.
Oh, this is why I know about it. Yeah, it was the James Bulger.
Yeah,
Not,
that's
yeah,
it. Yep.
yeah,
Yeah, because it had the movie came out too close
yeah,
to
yeah,
that case, but it never got resubmitted, and from what I hear, if it was to be resubmitted, they would probably let it pass. But nobody had whoever owns the rights to it now hasn't made the effort.
yeah. I mean, well, you can understand because I think I might have even got the kid's name wrong there. I
No,
might be
I think you're right. I think it
okay.
was
I might,
Bulger.
yeah, I might be again. My problem is I take in too much knowledge, and occasionally I have to second guess myself because I'm like, am I right or am I wrong? I need a fact checker by my side at all
Uh,
times. What do you think of again? This is quite a one of the only ones that is again not quite a slasher. Jeepers Creepers. That's got a bit of a controversy surrounding it.
I like the first one.
Mm.
Um,
I like the
the
concept completely, just the concept of him, but the films they kind of got a bit, you know, too.
Well, with those movies, you have to really separate the artist from the art.
Yep.
Um, I didn't like the second one. I didn't bother with the third one. Um, but the first one I do, I think it's a solid movie, and a lot of that has to do with the performances. I think Gina Phillips is really good
Oh
in that
yeah.
one.
And what's his name now?
Yeah, I'm blanking on it too, and I really
Uh,
like him as an
oh no,
actor.
yeah, he's so good. Is oh shit,
Justin
Justin Long?
Justin Long. Yep.
Justin Long. Yeah, he's a super cool actor. He's super fucking talented.
Yeah.
Super talented. I've heard a few like interview stories about him, about how like good of an actor he really is, and it's a phenomenal actor.
Yeah, I mean he could do comedy and
Hmm.
he could do horror. He can I liked him in Drag Me to Hell. That was a good one.
Yeah, yeah. Drag Me to Hell's another strange one because it's got really good reviews, but it's not really. It's another one of those little CGI jump scare things for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
But it was a solid movie, you know, with a fucking gypsy woman and
Yeah.
curses.
It was
Anything with a
very
gypsy and curses is good.
it was very over the top. and I think that's what they were going for.
Yeah, here's a question. There's a few films that I've tried to find over the years. Now, one of them, it's a horror film, and it's about this couple that go out into like the American like West. I don't know where it is, but either way, it's pretty, mountainous and whatever, like the desert. And they come across some garage, and it's owned by a guy who then kidnaps them, right, and then makes the guy like almost rescuer in some weird game. But he's like puts this weird like metal, like he drills like a metal fucking thing to his body and shit. And I can't ever remember the name of it. I watched it like 2004, something like that. And I don't know what the fuck it's called, and I've never been able to find it since. But it's so strange. I had it on DVD. A shit copy as well.
I wish I could help you out.
It's weird because the guy's like this big fat guy and is like a creep and is like just kidnaps these fucking people. But it's so strange.
It sounds interesting. But yeah.
There's a couple
like
of
I said, I wish I
there's a
could help
couple.
you out, but it's not ringing any bells for me either.
There's a couple of films like that. That's one of them. The second film I'm trying to find, and this is another strange one, and I know it exists, and people always say that it's Idle Hands, and it's not Idle Hands.
Okay.
There was a film, and I remember years and years ago. I must have been about 20, and I was like asleep on my sofa. And I'd like, do you know when you just nod off and you wake up while watching films?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I fell asleep watching Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Mm-hmm.
And then I obviously woke up on my sofa, and then I woke up and I'd like had a bit of a smoke. Because I was just, what I used to do, if I woke up, I'd just have a smoke, sort of wake up for a little bit and then just chill out and then go back to sleep. And I woke up and then this weird film was on, and a guy was running around and his hand was attached to his body and trying to kill him. And this is where people go, it's like Idle Hands, right? And he chopped his hand off, right? And then, like, again, I was just briefly glancing over. And then there was and this is what's strange, is this hand is trying to kill him, right? And then they're on the edge of this building and the guy is like hanging on with one hand and the hand tosses him off the building. And then the end of the film, which is so strange, is there's a bunch of hands walking down the street.
Oh.
And it is a fucking, and people go, yeah, people look, until I get to that last bit about the hands walking down the street, everyone's like, it's idle, it's like, they're like, it's Idle Hands. And I'm like, it really isn't.
I was getting Evil Dead 2.
No, it's not. No, it's not Evil Dead. It's Evil Dead's one of my favourite films. Bruce Campbell, super fucking actor. But I've questioned so many people, to the point I've done Google searches. I've looked for it for fucking years, and I've just never been able to find it. Wow. Never ever. I don't know what it's called, but the only reason it sticks so much is just because of those hands walking down the street, and there was all like marching like an army.
Yeah.
And I was like, huh, that's strange. And then the film ended. And that was it.
Weird.
It was a strange film. It was almost, it wasn't even like low horror, like low budget. It was, I don't know. It was so weird. It's weird what memories stick. But that one is always stuck just because it was so weird. It's just these hands walking. A bit like the Thing from like Addams Family, but like 40, 50, but like 50 of them, just all in a line marching. I almost want to believe I was dreaming, but I know I wasn't, just because of the fact that I'd had some food and I'd had a smoke. Like I had some Weetabix and shit while I was watching this, and I was smoking.
Now you're
and
making me question my expertise, because I was hoping that I could help you out with.
Yeah,
I don't know either
the problem is I'm a huge I've seen a lot of films, and sometimes I'll go, oh yeah, no, I'm not quite sure of that. But then when people talk about it, I go, oh yeah, no, I know the film now. And then my brain will just click back into gear. But this is just one that's always escaped, and I can't ever know what I don't know. It's like when you listen to a song and you don't hear it again for like years. Or the same for a film, but this film has never cropped back up. There's been films that I've forgot about and found, but that's been one that I've just never found. Those two films.
I was starting to think Waxwork, maybe, because there is a crawling hand in that one, and but there's
Mm.
nothing else like what you described, and what ends up happening is that the hand uh, gets stuck on a fence, and I remember after the credits, they flash back to the hand and it's still wiggling. The fingers are still wiggling. So I
Mm.
had that vision in my head, as well as Bruce Campbell. Um, I know that there's a movie called The Hand that
Yeah,
I'm.
this. See, I'm just googling again now, and even then, it's like what comes up is the hand, but I don't know.
Do you know when it was from? Like
Mm,
what era?
no, that's the problem. I just never know. I mean, if you just like wiki it, I really don't think that's it. No.
Hmm.
Oh, hold on. Mm, no, I'm gonna have to watch it and just watch the ending.
Hmm.
Um, but every time I Google it, it's like idle hands, and I'm like, no, it's not idle fucking hands. Well, obviously, Evil Dead. You a big fan of that?
Hmm.
Because that's
Of
another one of
course.
the all-time iconic horror films.
Yeah, the remake's great too.
Yeah, that's one of the only remakes that kind of stands up a little bit, you
It
know?
does. It's one of the only really good ones that came out of that period
Mm.
when every horror movie was getting remade.
Yeah, I think even Chucky did one, didn't they? They did the Seed of Chucky or
Ex-
whatever it was, which is
Well, no,
bullshit.
they did the Child's Play remake in 20, what was it,
Oh yeah,
2 or 3 years ago.
they did they did a couple. They did a follow one and a remake. The remake was with the animatronic doll rather than the
Right.
possessed one, which is a
Yeah,
bit stupid, you
yeah,
know.
I didn't like it. I didn't like it. There are people who appreciate the way they updated it, and because they did make Chucky more of an AI
Mm.
figure. Uh, but I wanted the voodoo
Yeah, I like the
stuff.
voodoo. Any
Um,
film with voodoo is good.
yeah, I just and I didn't. I have nothing against Mark Hamill as an actor. I just really didn't like him as the
Mm.
voice of Chucky.
No,
There's
I didn't
only
like him as a voice.
there's only one just like there's only one Freddy, there's
Yep,
only one
Brad Dourif.
Chucky, and that's Brad Dourif. Yeah.
Yeah, he was in one of my. Well, I think it might have been his first film, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Yeah.
That film was like a first for so many actors, but people didn't realise that Brad Dourif he was in there. He played Billy,
Hmm.
which is such a good actor again. You know, to go from that to being
Yeah.
Chucky. But obviously, Evil Dead. What about the series? What do you think of the series?
I like it. I think it's
Mm.
fun. I didn't get through the whole thing, but I do think it's really fun, and Bruce Campbell is really funny in it, and I like Lucy Lawless a lot.
Yeah.
She's
Have
awesome.
you seen Bubba Hotep?
I have not. No.
Oh, you should watch that. That's very good. Obviously, Bruce Campbell, and it's a B movie. Cult classic as well. It's,
I read both of his books. They were also a lot of fun.
I've not see. I've not read his books yet. That's the only problem. I've not read them.
Yeah, if chins could kill, and I
Yeah, I know it's chins could kill.
forget the name of the second
Yeah,
one. They were both very funny.
yeah. No, it's just the titles of them are funny. He's like even himself is like a character, isn't he?
He
You know,
is, yeah,
but he's an icon. You know, the way even now he's, he goes into like Evil Dead and he's still got like a fucking man girdle and
right,
he puts like false teeth in and shit. He's just, but he's totally still living that same I'm fucking Bruce Campbell swagger. He's
yeah.
so good. He's a brilliant fucking guy. He's one of the people I'd love to meet. Just
I've heard he's actually a really really nice guy,
yeah, I
very
bet he
very
is.
approachable, and a buddy of mine who grew up like hardcore Evil Dead, Bruce Campbell is like one of his idols. He went to a convention once that uh, Bruce was going to be at, and he was standing outside smoking a cigarette, and Bruce stepped out for something,
Whoa.
and he just like kind of froze and didn't know what to do because he didn't want to bother him. And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think Bruce was able to pick up on that
The
my
vibe.
buddy was looking at him, but he didn't want to say anything, and he just stuck out his hand and said, "Hey, how you doing? I'm Bruce. What's your name?"
I'm Bruce.
Yeah, and
Brilliant.
yeah, he was just very personable and nice, and he approached my buddy, so just goes
I
to show,
think
and he put him at ease right away.
I think that's the thing with some celebrities. Obviously, some people get like fanboyish and they're like,
Yeah,
ah, but then some people are like, holy shit, that's like Bruce Campbell.
yeah,
But then some people are so respectful in that they're like, man, I bet he's probably a busy dude, and
yeah,
and that's probably why they reach out to people just because you do leave them alone, and you're like, man, it's just a normal guy, and maybe it's not just about being that fanboy all the time. I mean, I'll admit if there's a couple of people, if I met them, I'll be like, fuck, you know.
yeah,
But I think the best way would be to just play it completely cool, you know. And I
yeah,
think that's the best way to go about it.
yeah.
Let's move off the films. Let's talk about your books. You've got
Okay.
15 books. That's a fucking whopping amount.
Do I have that many?
Yep.
I because yeah, I keep them all in my folder, my writing folder. I have them all separated from the novels to the short stories, short story collections to the novellas. So I guess 15's about that's about right. Yeah.
That's what Amazon says. I don't think Jeff Bezos is lying. I think they're all on Amazon, aren't they? They are.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are. It is. That's where I got the information from. Had to cross my own wires then. This is the problem sometimes. I speak to, this is like the fourth author. So I'm like, I've got to read some stuff because I'm very interested in just again. I've not been able to read them yet, but I shall purchase one very shortly. And
Cool.
again, I love reading. Um, so what's your favourite book
Um.
or author?
Well, my favorite author is Jack Ketchum, and my favorite book is The Girl Next Door, um, which is one of his books. For a while, my favorite book for a long time, my favorite book was Catcher in the Rye,
Okay.
and I still love it. But it's it's very cliche to say your favorite book is Catcher in the Rye, but I think that The Girl Next Door is one that has trumped it with how many times I've read it, and it still gets me.
Okay. How come? Obviously, The Catcher in the Rye is a great book. It's just it's a strange book. How I don't understand how people get so crazy about it. It's not that controversial, really. You know.
No, I think what bothered people were the swear. There's some minor swearing in it.
Oh yeah, yeah. Obviously, that wasn't really the social norm in books at the time.
No, and it was like 1951, I think. So yeah, no.
But I mean, there's, there's a lot of books that are a bit older that are probably way worse. I don't. This is why I can't understand.
Well,
I,
yeah.
I
I
think it's
mean,
just the one guy that went fucking crazy, to be honest, and that book was just associated, and then it's just kind of become more of a cult thing
right.
rather than it just. I don't know. I've read some fucked up crazy books, man, and I'm like, huh. And then I've also read The Catcher in the Rye, and I'm like, hmm.
This is a bit tame.
Yeah, I'm like, there's a lot of other Stephen films nowadays. There's tons of films that are way more graphic and psychological and not just like a couple of swear words and obviously fucking what's his name read it, didn't he? They so to speak. That's why you went on that fucking shooting fucking rampage. No, but
Chapman.
yeah, some
Have you
some
seen the movie that was based on him
I actually haven't. No.
with
Um,
Jared Leto played him, and he did a really, really good job.
he's a great actor.
Oh, he is.
He's not a very
He's
good Joker, but he's a good actor.
no, yeah, I agree with you there. But yeah, it's very unsettling, and
Hmm.
yeah, it follows his trip to New York, and his first time there. He's from Hawaii, and goes a little bit into his psyche and what led up to the shooting of John Lennon. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's a really good movie. It's called Chapter 27.
Okay. I'll have to write that one down. So I normally have a bunch of post-it notes next to me for these purposes. Because it's one thing I love about podcasting is you get loads of recommendations and stuff that you never really look at unless you talk to a lot of people,
Yeah.
which is always a joy. I always love finding new stuff. And again, passing on stuff that people haven't probably watched.
Well, what's your
Um,
favorite book?
my, again, I'm a huge Stephen King fan, so I've got a hell of a lot of his on the list. A huge David Wong fan as well. John Dies at the End is the book and film. If you've not heard of that,
I've heard of the movie. I didn't know it was a book.
yeah, Paul Giamatti is in the movie. But yeah, the book's fantastic. The film, not so much. They take out a lot of stuff,
Mm.
like most films do, which is kind of rubbish. Um, but another one of my favorite books is probably The Shining. Um,
Hmm.
the book's fantastic. There's so many authors at the minute that I'm reading that I'm a little bit. It's almost tricky to give like you said about B movies. Getting a list. The list's a bit compact, and there's a few on there. But that's it's pretty much it. Most Stephen King. I'm good to go for. Same for J.R.R. Tolkien.
Uh-huh.
Even J.K. Rowling. I'm a huge fan of the Harry Potter books.
Isn't she
That's
unpopular these days because of her? She said something a couple of years
yeah.
ago that
She
was.
yeah she pissed off the LGBTQ movement. Made some comments.
It was anti-trans or something.
Yeah, something along them lines. Which she's had to defend herself for, which is kind of crazy, to think that. Again, she's probably one of the biggest authors,
Ever,
maybe
yeah.
modern day. Modern day.
Yeah.
I've not known a single author to have a whole film franchise based on every book.
Right.
I've not known one. You've got Lord of the Rings, but that's 3 films. You've got The Hobbit, that's another 3 films, but that's one book. The only person I can really think of that's, again, 7 books, 8 films, you know? And that's Harry Potter, J.K. Rowling. I can't think of anybody else in history. I don't think there's gonna be anybody else, to be quite honest.
Yeah, and it's actually amazing that her first book got published
She
because
wrote it on a train. It's
yeah,
crazy.
she sent a longhand manuscript
Yeah,
because she couldn't afford a typewriter.
yeah, yeah.
And when I was trying to
That
get
would
my
be worth a
first
fortune, wouldn't it? Jeez. Think of how much that'd be worth. Wow.
when
Sorry,
I
carry on.
when I was trying to get my first book published, I obviously studied up a lot on the ins and outs of the business and how to approach editors and agents and what to do and what not to do. And because editors, especially, bore very, very easily because
Yeah.
they have so much stuff that goes across their desk every day. And if you break one of the cardinal rules, no matter how great your book is or your proposal, it's just going to go right in the trash.
Cardinal rules?
Yeah, there's a lot of cardinal rules, and there's little things because you have to kiss their ass, you have to address them by name. You always
Okay.
have to include the self-addressed stamped envelope. You have to have your introductory paragraph about yourself, and then the um, paragraphs about what your book's about. Sometimes they want a proposal for how you plan to market the book, and
I was going to ask about the process, but you're on it.
yeah,
So carry
and then
on.
and then there's when you submit a manuscript, exactly how to have it formatted, and where your name and address is supposed to be on the page, and where the title's supposed to be on the page, and you have to have a word count in a specific area. You never, ever, ever put a copyright symbol because that's rankings of an amateur. Um, and yeah, right at the
Huh.
top of the list of things that you never, ever, ever do is send a handwritten manuscript. And the fact that she did, and that it became this juggernaut, one of the most um, popular books of all time, and sold millions and millions of copies, and
Every
became this
country.
huge. I mean, just think if she had sent that manuscript to the wrong editor.
Ooh. Yeah. Wow. I bet you he'd have kept that son of a bitch, though. I would have. I'd have been like, hey, you sent it me. It's mine.
Hmm.
It'd be worth £1 billion one day when you die. It'd probably be worth a hell of a lot of money, that long form.
Yeah.
But that's so strange. Why can't you put a copyright on it? Why is it amateur? It's
Because uh, you're not really supposed to go through that process until you're actually
in industry.
in the industry. Yeah,
Yeah. Hmm.
and
But what about
if
if
you
you
put
just
a
wanted to
copyright.
self-publish? And so if I self-published a book and then they were like, "Hey, this is pretty good. Can we buy it?"
No,
What
that
about
happens all the time. Yeah.
so what would you do with that copyright then? Because
Well,
that'd be
it
strange.
would depend on the contract.
Okay.
Because you would
Sounds super complex, man.
sign the copyright over to the publisher for however long the book is in
Okay.
print. But the Martian the Matt Damon movie,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
that was based on, it originally started out as a blog. The
Hmm,
author put the chapters up one at a time, blog postings, and
that's
then
crazy.
uh, started getting requests from people saying, can I get this all together?" And so the author self-published it as a Kindle book and put it up on Amazon and got approached, and then everything went from there.
Huh, that's crazy. Just from a blog.
Yeah,
Hmm,
a
maybe I
lot
should
of
start
books
writing again.
have been became out of blogs that became bestsellers too, like Julia and Julia. That was a blog.
Oh, I don't know what that is. The
Uh,
problem is, I associate most blogs with like fan fiction nowadays.
right.
I know that isn't the case, but when I was looking into it years ago, it was like literally fan fiction Harry Potter, and you'd start reading it and you go, hmm. I think, I mean, it was good. Some of the stories you'd be like, okay, they actually do a pretty good job, but I just always associated blogging years ago with just that, or just almost like a mild earlier form of podcasting, but them just talking about themselves.
I never really wrote fan fiction.
Hmm.
Um, I did write a really, really bad screenplay because when I was in high school, so I don't really count it.
Oh,
But
okay.
I wrote a Slumber Party Massacre sequel because I was so obsessive and fanboying about those. And, yeah, that was bad. But that's really the only thing that I consider when it comes to fan fiction stuff, because I don't know, it feels like I'm stepping in somebody else's pants
Yeah,
by
yeah,
making their characters talk, and it's kind of, to me it's kind of sacrosanct. It's like
yeah.
I wouldn't want somebody taking over the lives of the characters I created, so I'll let someone else do that.
With your books, obviously a lot of people nowadays like multiverse all their books. Like Stephen King does a hell of a good job of it. So most of his stuff's always set in Maine, or there's always like a couple of characters that occasionally cross over in books.
Right.
Do you ever do stuff like that?
I used to have a fictitious town that I it was a suburb that I started setting all of my stories in when I was in high school, and it crossed over into my first huh, how many of my book the first one, several of my books took place in that town. But I like the idea of having a fictitious town because you can do whatever you want with it. Um,
Yeah.
so, but now with more recent stuff, I've been setting it in Philadelphia, where I'm from. Uh, so that's been an interesting transition. But as far as characters go, uh, no. Um, I haven't even written any sequels to any
Okay.
of my books. It's kind of, well, yeah, no, I haven't, but I have written a few short stories that are centered around the same character. Other than that, no, I
I
don't have
mean,
my own universe.
it almost just it almost it's always one thing that always amazes most authors. They'll write about the same person. You know, take J.K. Rowling. It's Harry Potter. That's who she's known for. Um, but then and then they'll just do, several sequels. So I always find it amazing when people write like you've just done yourself, like almost 15 individual stories that aren't linked together. Um, but the one thing that I like is when I read some of Stephen King's books, and then you'll get sort of halfway through, and then a character, even a name, gets mentioned from another book. You almost get just a little bit of an excitement. You go, ooh, this guy gonna pop up? You know,
Well, that's what
it's
they did with the Castle Rock series, right?
yeah, yeah. That's got there's several people that pop up in that.
Hmm.
The one from Anne Wilkes from
Oh,
Misery.
she popped up in that?
I'm pretty sure she did.
Wow.
There's a few that do. Um, it's just because again he centers everything around like Maine, so
Yeah, yeah.
that. But like and the neighboring places around it, and then obviously there's a lot of fictitious stuff that he writes into it, and I don't know. It's just always, it just always gives you a weird little butterfly sensation. Just didn't know if you'd ever considered it. That was all.
Yeah, I was considering going to a different country, for another book, uh, maybe setting something in the UK or
Oh, okay.
Australia or something like that.
Australia would be a strange one. Don't see many Australian stories
Um,
or places set in Australia, I should say.
I don't,
I haven't. That might just be me.
I can't even name an Australian author, which I think is
No,
overlooked. I'm
no. I'm trying to pick my brain, but I can't think of.
I'm pretty sure they have all writers down there.
Yeah, there's got to be one at least.
Yeah,
There's probably someone super famous from Australia
probably.
that we're just
Um,
completely not thinking of at all.
yeah. But you have gotten a lot of really good mystery and thriller writers coming out of the UK. A lot of female writers.
Yeah, we've got a few. Mm, I'm not a massive thriller reader. Some stuff I like. I'm a big fan of oh shit, what's his name? He wrote The Lincoln Lawyer. He wrote well, that was a
Grisham?
film as well. Yeah, John Grisham. Huge fan of John Grisham as well. But that's obviously true crime sort of thriller.
Right. Yeah, one of my favorite books, another one of my favorite books is by an English author named B.A. Paris. It's called Behind Closed Doors.
Oh, I've heard that. Yep, I've never read it, but I've heard of it.
Oh, it's such a great
Um,
book.
yeah, it's some English authors I find I've not really. I mean, I've read plenty of English authors, but I wouldn't really say that I'm a huge fan. Most of the stuff that I read and listen to, it's all American. It's kind of strange. I can't really name many English authors that I do read that aren't, they're a bit more obscure. Um, Not really many. Most of them come out of America.
The Girl on the Train, that was another really good one. Paula Hawkins, I think.
Yeah, that's the same person that did Girl with a Pearl Earring and stuff like that. Am I right? And the
Uh,
girl with the dragon tattoo.
no, those are Swedish
Oh,
authors.
was it not? Are they not the same? Is that not the same? I thought that was like a follow-on almost. I
No,
could be wrong.
no,
It sounds like one of theirs.
no. The Girl on the Train's more of a mystery. The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo is kind of like a more of a police procedural, I think.
Mm. Hmm. Sounds yeah. It does sound very familiar.
Well, The Girl
Again,
on the
this is
Train was made into a movie, but they set it in America. It was the book was based uh in it was based in the UK. I can't remember exactly where, but it was. Yeah, about a girl who took the train to and from work every day, and apparently I didn't know this, but in the UK you can get gin and tonic in a can,
Oh
pre-mixed.
yeah, yeah, you can. Yeah, on a train as well. You can
Yeah,
drink on trains.
well, that's
Okay, you can
exactly
have a
what
beer.
she did. Yeah, she was an alcoholic. Yeah.
Yeah, you can get like beers and wine and yeah, Paula Hawkins. Hmm. Zimbabwe born.
Oh, is that right?
Don't even. Yeah, no. I don't even think I've. I don't think I've actually. I don't think I have heard of it. I think I might just be crossing wires.
The movie had Justin Theroux in it, and
Yeah, I've just just looked into the. Well, I accidentally clicked on the movie first. It's kind of sucks sometimes with Google, is you'll click on it hoping to get the book, and the very first thing it throws at you, if it's got a movie, is the movie,
Mhm.
which isn't very good. Not really.
I also enjoyed the Shopaholic books. Speaking of English authors.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's. Again, I don't think there is. There is many that I can name. It's. Have you ever read any? Again, like horror science fiction. Have you ever read much science fiction?
Science fiction, no.
I know
Um,
it's very tricky to read. I've not been a big fan. Even growing up as a kid, I found it difficult to read science fiction. But lately, as an adult, well, I've been an adult for years, but more recently, I've started reading a lot more science fiction. Um, and it's still hard to read. Let's put it that way. Um,
with science fiction, I mean, when you're writing a novel, you're essentially an author with a blank canvas. You're God. You know, you can
yeah,
make your characters do anything, you can create any kind of setting. Um, so the possibilities are infinite, but with science fiction, it's like you multiply that by 100 because there's
yeah.
so much you can do with science fiction and so much that's difficult to wrap your head around. Because a lot of it is really out there, and you know, when it first came out, you know, the time machine blew people's minds because it wasn't time travel wasn't something that people had ever, you know, conceived of.
Yeah. That
So,
machine was ridiculous. That just was so big. It looked like a goddamn sleigh. Like, what if you was to come up with the idea of a time machine? Why the fuck would you make it like that with a huge fucking big clock on the back? It was ridiculous. It looks like it can't do fuck all. It was so stupid.
oh
Just for
goodness.
design purposes. That's what I was saying in terms of science fiction. Whoever whoever like designed that was a madman. He went totally out of the box. He could have, you know, if you're talking about time travel and shit like that, at least with Doctor Who, and I'm not a big fan, but at least he gets into a box that's then got a big room in it. This was just a fucking sled with loads of weird knobs and bright buttons, and it looked so stupid.
Yeah.
And it didn't even then. I don't think they did. It didn't even work correctly. I think they still fucking ended up in weird places. Like, what a crazy, crazy thing. That was like with the Morlocks, weren't it? With the fucking
Right. Yeah.
goddamn fucking underground dwellers.
And especially too, you got authors like L. Ron Hubbard who wrote and created a whole religion. So,
Woo! Glad you brought this up. You a fan of Scientology?
oh no, no, I'm not. I was for a time uh, how do I say not I I found it to be interesting to learn about
Oh
what
yeah.
people in the because it is a cult. It's very much a cult. what people have experienced while in Scientology, because there have been a lot of books that have come out, people telling their stories.
Stories, yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of it is just insane. And Leah Remini wrote
Yeah, that's what I was just
about
going to
her.
say. Yeah,
Yeah, she wrote about her experiences in her book, and then she had her series, and she's got a podcast now.
she was on the Joe Rogan show as well years and years ago. They talked about it on there, and he had what's his name? Who's the leader of it now?
David Miscavige.
Yeah, he had his father on the
Yeah, he wrote a book too.
podcast.
Ron
Yeah,
Ron Miscavige, I think his
yeah,
name.
Ron, that's the one. Yeah, something like that. Which is crazy. Like which is fucked up, man. He introduced his son to it, and then his son just took over the fucking organization.
Yeah.
It's nuts. Like, do you know if they let me drink and smoke cannabis, I'd join just to see what it'd be like. Just to obviously you've got to pay, which kind of sucks, you know. But
Yeah.
just to see how far it'd go. Just to go, okay.
Well, not only do you have to pay, but you have to pay everything you have and everything you don't have.
Yeah, but if they boosted my podcast numbers, it'd be worth it.
They would still take all your money. They would take all your earnings from your podcast.
Only for a bit, you know. I'd get out when I could, as long as Tom Cruise didn't come hunting me down, because he's about the
Well,
same height as me, and he'd probably kick my ass.
you may not have Tom Cruise hunting you down, but you'd have somebody hunting you down.
Oh yeah, that's the crazy thing is it probably goes way deep, like CIA level deep or
It
some
does.
shit, you know.
It's exactly what it is. It's very much like the CIA. I mean, they even went so far as to buy a house across the street from someone who left Scientology just so
Yeah,
that they could keep tabs on them and film them and watch where they went every single day. I mean, a lot of the stories that have come out about these survivors are just nuts, and
their property holdings are massive.
say again, I'm sorry.
Their property holdings, they hold a lot of property as well.
They do. Yeah, and a lot of it is it's just abandoned. There's nothing in them in the building.
Mm.
They are just there so that they could say, look how big we are. Look how many buildings we have. We're in this country and we're in this country. We have buildings in New York and Los Angeles and blah blah blah. But there's nothing in them, and there's nothing going
Yes.
on in them. And they say that they have millions of followers around the world, but it's only somewhere around 25, 30,000.
Well, I'm a weird fan. I just like all cults. Anything about cults, I'm into it. Just because it's fascinating, you
I
know.
just opened the can then when I found out
Yeah,
Scientology.
that's the problem. What about do you like conspiracy theories?
Some of them are a bit out there.
What about like aliens? What's your thoughts on those bad boys? Do you think they're real?
Absolutely. Do I believe they're here? No.
Okay. What about under the ocean? Do you think they're under the sea?
No.
Okay.
No.
These are a standard set of questions. I'll pretty much ask these everybody.
I believe
Don't
that
worry.
there's life on other planets. So I think they're trying to communicate with us. No.
Yeah, I mean, lately I've been a bit skeptical with everything, but in terms of like the truth, because I don't know, I've delved down too many rabbit holes, and I like to join dots and play fun. I think that we've been here for millions of years, and history has rewrote itself tons and tons of times, and we was probably battling dinosaurs and shit, and that's where like the history of dragons comes from. You know, I think that I don't really fully believe it, but I think that a lot of history, in terms of myths and shit, is probably true. It's just been like Chinese whispers.
What's
One
that?
person says it. It's like well, it's probably even shouldn't even call it that anymore. But that's what the actual name of the game has been called. It's been called that for
Oh,
ages.
okay.
You know,
Yeah.
where you pass something along in a chain. I don't know any other name for it.
Yeah, we
That's
call it
always what it's
or
been called.
I'd heard it called Whisper Down the Lane.
Okay, that's probably the new term for it. Um, Again, there's so many things that have been like changed, and it's always forever changing. But yeah, it's probably just like that in terms of history. It's where it's just been passed on and on and on, and then someone else has added their spin and their spin, and
Mm-hmm.
I think that's kind of what it is. I don't believe in I don't believe in vampires. Let's put it that way. That's the only thing. That's where I
Well,
draw the line: is vampires and werewolves. You know.
well, I don't believe in supernatural vampires, but do I believe there's people who drink blood? Sure.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That's again where I mix myth with truth, because there's been histories of cannibals, and there's that crazy queen that was drinking people's blood and bathing in it and
Right.
shit, and
Yeah.
there was a lot of there was a couple of crazy serial killers as well over time. There was a woman in Russia, and she was basically killing people and then like using their blood to make like sausages and shit,
Oh,
and fucking making cakes and all sorts of crazy shit.
wow.
So I do believe that like over history there's been these crazy people that have kind of feasted on people, and then we've just gone, man, that dude's a vampire,
Uh-huh.
or whatever. It's like the people that are born with a lot of hair. They're I can't remember what the condition is, but that's not exactly new. So imagine back in the day that this feral man who's covered in hair, who people have cast out into the fucking wilderness anyway because he looks different, and then years down the line, he comes back and they're like, "Fuck, there's a fucking werewolf man," or whatever, because they completely fucking forgot, or the dude's moved town, or whatever. I think that's a lot of our history. I think that's a lot of how history's been written, just by bullshit. Just bullshit and nonsense, and people just like the dinosaur thing. I think that we've been around, and through history, there probably was some pterodactyls that survived in a cave. Birds did. Well, in between there were still other things. There might have been just maybe two or three. And we were literally just about coming out of our fucking, little caves and shit, because apparently we was in caves for a while during all this cataclysm and stuff. And when all the the fallout goes, and then everything comes out, and then next thing we've got these huge fucking sky birds that we'd forgot about for a few hundred years, and then sweeping down, getting our kids. Well, it's just like a dragon, isn't it?
Well,
It's a big bird.
here's one for you. What do you think about the flat earthers?
Mm. You see, flat Earth. I don't believe the Earth is flat. It's impossible.
Okay.
Obviously, during history, people have, even like philosophers and people have said it's flat. At one point, the Bible said it was flat. You know,
Mm-hmm.
but it's impossible to think of that. I do think that there's something behind, not hollow Earth, but I think that there maybe is a lot of caverns inside the Earth because caves exist.
Yeah,
And
you
the
got the
Earth's
mole people.
pretty big.
Yeah.
And there might have been at some point, I don't know, maybe some people did live in caves and start to dwell in there because they was fucking sick of the outside world, and maybe they died out,
Now
or
we're
you
going
just don't
into
know.
descent territory.
Yeah, maybe you just don't know. No one's ever going to know. I mean, you get these crazy videos that people have shot, and they're clearly fakes. There's a few in like the Paris catacombs and stuff like that, of like weird fucking people and stuff. But I'm not saying there's a race of men or even aliens living under the earth, but there's a lot of space. You know, Even in the Arctic, there's a couple of big holes and caves, and they're like geothermal. They're like warm inside, even though it's fucking freezing cold on the outside.
Mm-hmm.
But they just go down, and obviously you're getting close to the Earth's core, and it gets hotter. There's caves like that exist. So telling me that if there wasn't just a little bit of light and the right bit of atmosphere, you wouldn't just decide to live down there? I fucking would.
I don't know about that.
Again, this is all fun, by the way. I don't believe there's a race of people inside the Earth. I think they're lizard people inside the Earth.
What do you think about those videos of supposed demonic possession or exorcisms?
You see, that's another strange one. Um, I'm not saying that. I mean, people believe in demons. Even heavy Christians believe in demons, and a lot of religions believe in demons. It's just when you see it in the media, it's just, the way it's portrayed. It's not great,
Yeah,
but no one really knows what a fucking demon would be anyway.
right.
It could just be the fact that you occasionally, you walk down the street and someone looks at you funny and you get a bit pissed off. You go, what the fuck are you looking at? That could be a demon, because most people just act normally, but some people are filled with rage and bullshit, and to them they're demons.
Well, the, you're making me think of, the evil eye. That you could make things happen
Mm,
just by forcing negative energy onto someone. Um,
you can, kind of.
um, if you believe in it, it all. See, I was baptized Catholic and I was raised Catholic. So I spent a large chunk of my life uh, as a believer.
Yep.
Now I consider myself to be an agnostic, leaning more towards atheism.
Okay.
Um, I I don't know what is out there, and I don't think anybody can say for sure what is out there and what isn't out there.
Mm,
But like uh there are certain, even because I don't know, there are certain things that I wouldn't I wouldn't do. Like, for example, because I'm not sure about an afterlife or heaven or hell or whatever, I wouldn't, do anything to desecrate a grave.
yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
No, absolutely.
and because I don't know if there really are demons or dark forces out there, I wouldn't want to mess with like voodoo or any of that
Mm.
stuff. Although I am guilty of playing with a few Ouija boards, but
Yeah, me too. I've fucked around in my life, man. It's kind of it's again, I kind of believe in like the shadow people as well. I think that's a real thing.
mm,
I believe in a lot of weird shit. But I was baptized Christian. But over the course of my life, I've slowly believed more and more, pagan views and a lot of more older sort of religious ways and views. I believe in a lot of gods. I don't just believe there's one god. I believe that there's probably been a whole mess of them over the whole history, and
hmm
I don't think I believe in a lot of Greek gods and Roman gods. A lot of them are probably not bullshit either, because a lot of them are based on astrology and cosmology, and there's a lot of stuff that it's same for the Egyptian gods. I think there's a lot to them as well. Nordic gods. All of that shit. Heavily into it.
yeah, you sound
But
like you're very well rounded.
yeah, I tried to be, because, but even then, even lately, I've kind of looked more into Christianity and stuff like that, because I kind of believe maybe Jesus was a real guy. You know, I
Hmm
can't. There's, and again, there's just the way I go and that whispers down the line or whatever. It's just maybe there was a real guy, and maybe he did get put on a cross, and maybe some wacky, weird shit happened. Maybe. And then through people believing in bullshit, stories were made. There's kind of a bit to it. There's same for the the Great Flood. I think the Great Flood happened. It did happen. You know,
Hmm.
was there a guy called Noah? Maybe. Don't know.
Yeah.
Did he build a great big boat? Who knows? But there was a great flood,
Hmm.
and the Bible was, I think, built upon a lot of these stories. I think a lot of history is built upon stories, and I think we're not going to get to the bottom of it unless you study the whole of it rather than just one singularity.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. And I'm all for believing whatever it is you want to believe, just
Yeah,
as long
absolutely.
as you don't force it on other
Yeah, no.
people, and as long as you don't mock other people for not having the same beliefs you do.
Yeah, no, I'm totally on the same boat, It's why I don't really talk about my religious views that much, because most of it people wouldn't even get it. They wouldn't even understand. They go, but yeah, but how can you believe in all that? And I'm like, well, it's easier to believe in a lot of stuff based upon real history than it is to believe upon something that's kind of, I'm not saying it isn't real history or the Bible isn't real, but there's a lot of it was missing as well. There's a missing chapters and people rewrote it, and there's so many different versions, and whereas there's only one singular tale about one certain god from whatever religion.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? There's not 50 different stories about Odin that are
Well,
all different. It's all the same story, and the same for Set and Ra and Isis. That's one story. There's not 50 versions of it. Whereas, obviously the Bible's got multiple versions, and some of it's been taken out and amended. And but
yeah.
I'm not saying that I don't believe in it. I'm just saying that it's in terms of believing in things. I believe in a whole mess of stuff. But the latest one that I'm trying to wrap up in my head is the Bible, and I've never read it, but I'm going to. My partner thinks I'm crazy for wanting to read it. She's like, "You gonna read that?" I'm like, "Yep."
Well, I mean, if you get something out of it, more power
Oh,
to you.
I will get a lot out of it. Hopefully, whether it's right or wrong,
Whether it's right or
my
wrong,
my
absolutely.
my my take from it might at least give me a different perspective on things.
As far as the Bible goes,
They believe in all sorts. I mean, I've only heard little bits about the Bible, but there's all sorts of wild shit in there apparently. You
well,
know?
I think if you're going to preach Bible passages and say what's right and what's wrong based on what is in the Bible, you can't pick and choose. It's all or nothing. And
There's
like,
also a lot of scriptures as well. Sorry,
yeah,
there's a lot of that aren't there that also have tons and tons of information.
yeah,
Sorry.
and these people who say that homosexuality is wrong or immoral because what is written in the Bible, and so if we're talking about uh in the years before Christ, we're talking about a work that is over 2,000 years old. So wouldn't you think that a lot of these would be quite antiquated?
Mm.
I mean, you wouldn't practice some of the things that people did, you know, like 200 years ago, let alone 2,000 years ago. I mean, there are people who didn't wash themselves.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
Well,
there were people who had children in their own beds, in their own homes. We have hospitals now, we have doctors, and we have drugs, and you know, uh, things change, people change, times change, and I just think holding on to something that was believed so long ago is a little nonsensical, and
absolutely.
especially if you're hurting other people, like
Well,
especially your children. If you're banishing your child or disowning a child just because they want to love someone you don't think they should love. It's
Oh
and it all comes from that.
yeah. My only problem with like the way Christianity come about is obviously, it's 2,000 years old in a way, maybe a little bit older, but in terms of, when they say about the Bible and whatever. Um, but before that, obviously, that was then about God and a man, essentially, and a patriarchy. But up until before then, most things were based on a matriarchy. A
Mm.
lot of old pagan religions, they all had, and Celtic religions, there was all female deities, you know? Even before, like the Norse stuff as well. Like if you go a little bit back, just a little bit further, it was all based upon matriarchies. And the thing is, before Christianity came in, like men would sleep with each other. There was no sexuality was very open. From what I've read about
Oh
history,
yeah.
again, I
In Roman
might be a little bit
times,
wrong.
yeah, it was a free for all.
Yeah, even in Roman times, but even before that, um, even some of the Germanic tribes and shit like that, it was just open. There was no sexuality. Didn't mean shit.
Nope.
It wasn't even on the. It wasn't even a terminology. But then obviously Christianity came in and a patriarchy came in and that rocked the whole system. And it didn't just do it overnight. Obviously, it did it with wars and revolutions,
Sure.
and it wasn't just a snap of the fingers overnight. It took hundreds of years for this change to take place.
Hmm.
But it's. I feel that it's going back that way now. History goes, it seems, in cycles, and I think that this cycle we're coming to almost the end of, where it's coming back to the way, almost like a full circle, back to the way it was. Just, like when Rome was on the decline. Even then, it was a free for all sexually. But I think that we're almost at that sort of not end times again, but I think we're coming to that sort of full circle where we're going back round again,
Well, hopefully
and
we're
and
sexually
everything's
equal.
going to. Yeah,
I'm
well, I
down.
think it's happening.
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
I think it's happening. I think because from what you look at society now, it's blatantly happening. But I just don't think that people are seeing it that way because they've got blinkers on and they're only seeing the history that they've known and they've not looked back in terms of, hey, we've been here for way over 10,000 years as it's currently dated.
But it's I think you got to look at things like Mormons, who up until um, there was a man on the moon, they believed there were people who lived on the moon, and that was part of their scripture, of Mormon
They do,
scripture.
don't they?
I don't think
I've heard
not
there's people up
anymore.
there.
No.
I've heard that the moon's like the Death Star and that, you can go in there and it's all hollow and shit. That's what I've heard.
I don't know.
That's one of the theories. The hollow. Do you know they say obviously the hollow Earth? Well, apparently all planets are hollow. And they're all spaceships.
Well,
I've read that one.
all I know is the Earth's core is really hot.
It's a big solid iron ball.
Yeah.
That's at the minute it's warping. Did you know that?
Yeah.
It's not a ball anymore. It's slowly warping a little, so it's no longer a proper sphere. One little side of it's bumping a little, so I'm not quite sure what that's going to do.
I think we're in trouble.
Yeah, I think it'll sort itself out. It's
Well,
the Earth's pretty good at that shit.
we have global warming going on that's really kicking our asses.
Yeah, that's kicking everything's ass. I don't know how that's going to even be stopped at the minute. Obviously, they're doing a lot of electric cars and stuff like that, but
it's going to take
still
a lot of change and a lot of people
Yeah.
participating in that change. And there's
just
people who are
mining the earth for the the raw elements,
Yeah.
lithium, and that takes power. You can't pull them out the ground with your hands. You need diesel power to do that. You need fucking big diggers, and you need to fucking bore that shit out of the ground.
Well,
You
I'm
know?
I'm glad to see that there has been positive change in just the almost 4 decades that I've been on the earth. I mean, because when I was a kid, I was very young, um, nobody recycled anything.
Oh no,
Um,
set it on fire.
and so that slowly grew and grew, and then you got people who are totally green, and
Mm.
they live in solar powered homes to conserve energy, and they want to do good for the planet. And nobody was thinking about that 30, 40 years ago.
No,
Um, so there has been some positive change. And the electric cars are becoming more and more popular, and as the prices are going down. Um, so hopefully, once I don't think that they're perfected just yet, but I think that's where I think we could be headed in a positive direction. And
talking about electric planes next.
I don't
Which is
know.
It's just getting the battery size at the minute, which is a problem.
uh,
Obviously,
uh,
running a flight overseas, you'd need a huge battery. You know, imagine that 12-hour flight. That battery is going to have to be huge. It'd have to be completely solar paneled, and
I
I
think
don't know.
it's a little too premature for that.
Hmm.
But if
Well,
it
I don't know. I don't know. What do you think about this? Sorry, just a little bit back. Obviously, I should have mentioned this.
okay.
The US has just filed a patent for an anti-gravity device.
Mm,
So it works on it's anti-inertia device, I think is what it's called. Which is obviously they've released their Pentagon fucking things to do with the UFOs and
oh,
UPAs, and obviously they said, well, we don't quite know what they are and whatever. But then days later, they filed a patent for what would be essentially, a triangular shaped aircraft that doesn't run on normal propulsion, which is kind of crazy. So I don't know. In terms of a solar powered plane, I don't know, because what people are filing patents for is a bit fucking crazy.
well, as far as planes go, you would have to have a diesel backup. I don't,
Oh yeah.
because the technology just isn't there yet. So,
Mm.
um, but then again, I'm no fucking scientist.
No, I'm not.
So
I wish I was. I wish I was that smart. Shit.
we've gone down some interesting paths here.
We have gone down. We have gone down some interesting paths, man. This is what I like about this show. But we are on like 2:15, so and it's pretty late for you, man.
It is. Yeah.
And I've got to go and sort my son out because it's early morning breakfast here. So let's round up, man. Where can people follow you?
On Instagram at writer Brandon Ford, on Twitter at Brandon Ford, Facebook writer Brandon Ford. I'm also on Letterboxd at Brandon Ford, and you can follow me on Amazon. You can go to Amazon, type in Brandon Ford, find my author page, can click on follow, and you'll get updates and notifications when I have my latest books out. And yeah, also please check out the Blind Rage podcast, which is available on, I think, 10 different platforms this time. So,
All the normals.
yeah,
So
yeah,
all the normal ones.
yeah,
But no, this has been a very fun show, man. Again, I've been meaning to get you on all week, and it's been very fun.
yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Thanks very much for having me.
No, it's all good. I'll have to come on your show at some point, and
Yeah, yeah.
we'll have to plan a film, and we'll have to make a good one of it, and smash a podcast out for you.
Yeah, sounds good.
Well, listen, folks, this has been the Posthuman Podcast. I've been here with Brandon Ford, author, and I'll catch you next time, people. Take it easy.